Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hine, taking a look at tonight's 14-game MLB slate. We got a good one here, a lot of good pitching options, some decent hitting environments as well here.
Yeah, the slate is loaded with really, really good pitching options, so that makes it fun and some very interesting stacks to look at here.
Diving into this first game here, we got the Rays and Nationals. We got Max Scherzer taking on Nathan Eovaldi. Scherzer coming in top dog here tonight, gets this Rays team on the road, at home. I'm okay with paying the price tag here. Usually I think we tend to kind of go, oh, there's enough pitching options elsewhere. His price has dropped a little bit. He's still over 13K on DraftKings, but this seems too good of a spot to pass up.
I mean, it's Scherzer. Like, he, out of all the pitchers going on the slate, he has the most potential to go like 7, 8, 9 innings, double-digit strikeouts. I mean, there's really not a whole lot needs to be said. Like, we know the Rays are a young team. They're pretty swing happy. I mean, they're 24% strikeout rate against righties, dating back to last year. It's about 23 this year. A lot of strikeouts in that lineup. It's just such a good spot for Scherzer. He's the clear cut top option, and it's actually kind of easy to get him in today.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of I wouldn't say a steep drop off, but I feel like there is a little bit of a drop off after Scherzer. Like, I know Kluber and Paxton are on this slate, but I do value Scherzer so much more here.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, he's the guy that you feel the most comfortable in having the potential to go like a complete game, maybe give up like a homer to a lefty, like he almost always does. But outside of maybe Paxton, like I don't see double digit strikeouts coming from a lot of these other guys.
No, I don't either. And Scherzer was raging pretty hard at that hockey game last night.
Was he? I didn't see that. Might be a little concerning, but
Oh man, he had a hockey helmet on and everything. He was. I'll have to find you the GIF. It's classic.
I'll look for it whenever we get done recording.
National side here, Eovaldi coming off a solid start against Oakland. Obviously, the guy, Eovaldi's not a bad arm. That fastball's still there. He was averaging about 97. That was really good to see. Health has always been the biggest thing, and lefties has always been the biggest thing to him. Although I'm still not particularly high on targeting him outside of maybe a couple guys here.
Yeah, I'm not really either. Obviously, you're looking at the Bryce Harpers, the Matt Adams, the Sotos, guys like that are in decent spots because Eovaldi has struggled against lefties in his career. He's a guy that relies on his fastball a lot. It's a pretty good fastball. I mean, 97 miles an hour. It's kind of hard to hit those. Bryce Harper, decent numbers against the pitch, and against Eovaldi has some BVP, like a 438 average and like 16 at bats over his last five years against Washington. So it's Harper, Adams, Soto, those guys, although like I'm not terribly intrigued by using too many of them. Like Soto is a little bit interesting just because he's still pretty cheap.
Yeah, that's about it. Maybe a Matt Adams, but yeah, like a Harper price at 5.3. I think with pitching the way it is, I don't know how much I'm going to be really paying for guys over 5K tonight.
No, like if I'm paying up in the outfield, like I would so much rather get like the Stantons and the Judges and guys like that are a little bit cheaper and really, really good spots.
Yep, I'm with you. Next game here, we got the Dodgers and Pirates. Ross Stripling taking on Joe Musgrove. Generally, I don't like picking on the Pirates, but I don't mind rolling with Stripling here still, especially given his numbers against lefties, just elite dating back to last year. And, while the strikeout upside may be, a little bit down compared to the last few games, I still think he's a guy who has some strikeout stuff here.
Yeah, he certainly is. I mean, we're talking about a guy dating back to last season, like 27% strikeout rate. This season, like a 30% strikeout rate. Like all the numbers line up. Like this isn't like a flash in the pan for Stripling with his ERA and stuff like that. The numbers don't suggest a lot of regressions. Swing and strike rate is there for him. Like I know this Pirates team isn't a team that generally strikes out a lot. I mean, against righties, like 19.5% this season, but there is a lot of strikeout potential for him there, and his price is up a little bit across the industry, but like 9,600 on DraftKings, still not terrible, and like a good pitcher's park that generally suppresses strikeouts a little bit, but I still don't mind him if you're going to fade like the top tier arms tonight.
No, I don't either. And I'm certainly not picking on him here.
I'm probably not either, but like Austin Meadows continues to be a guy that's just absolutely raking, and it's really tough to overlook what he's done recently. But 4,700 on DraftKings, a little tough to stomach in the matchup.
Yeah. And on the other side of this one, you got Joe Musgrove. I mean, still fairly cheap at 7,500. Dodgers offense has gotten going a little bit here, but I don't mind some Musgrove here.
Yeah, I don't mind it either. I mean, you mentioned that the offense has gotten going a little bit, but I think we have to temper our expectations a little bit considering they're coming out of Coors, and that might play a little bit into why their offense has gotten going because it's a good hitting environment out there in Colorado. Obviously, you do have to worry about Max Muncy, who apparently just homers off of like every right-hander he faces, and that's a little concerning, but I don't mind Musgrove here in tournaments at that price, 7,500. It's a pretty decent spot for him going against a team that's coming out of Coors, and we know sometimes teams struggle when they do that.
Yeah, pretty. I mean, obviously, decent amount of travel here. Muncie's probably the only guy that I have interest in.
It'd be kind of like the heart of that order, like Yasmani Grandal, Kemp, Muncy would be the guys that I'd be looking at. But again, not somewhere where I'm looking to go too much tonight because there's a lot of other really good stacks.
Yeah. New York and Toronto, we got to the good stack here. Marco Estrada, fly ball guy, obviously a guy who just allows a ton of power potential in a pretty favorable ballpark here. Love the Yankees here, 1 through 9. Doesn't need a ton of explaining, although Judge's historic strikeout day yesterday was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I wonder if some of that was just like he's like, this is a doubleheader. I don't really care that much about today, but like this is such a good spot. We know Estrada, a huge fly ball guy, has struggled with home runs. Throws that really like 89-mile-an-hour four-seam fastball way too much, and all these guys just absolutely rake. Like Judge is one of my favorite options here. And then you get into the Birds, the Stantons, the Sanchez's. Sanchez, obviously, your top catching option on the slate, but I'm still going to do what I always do, and I'm going to probably end up stacking the bottom like of that order with Gregorius, Hicks, Andujar, and Torres, or Neil Walker if he gets in the lineup. I actually hope he does because he's got some BVP against Estrada.
It just like everything matches up so well. Estrada's throwing that changeup, that low velocity fastball, and like against that changeup, like I know there's some strong whiff rates, but like the ISO numbers outside of Garner, everyone has over a 200 ISO against this changeup dating back to 2016.
Yeah, it's like there's really not much that needs to be said. This is the one of the top offenses on the board tonight. It's anybody that's in that lineup is valuable, and even if like they've been giving Sanchez time off a lot recently. Like if Romine gets in the lineup, he's a really good option. He's been raking of late, so if they're in the lineup, they're in play.
Yeah. Other side of this one, I'm not terribly high on Toronto. I'm curious to see what that lineup looks like. I will say they do have a couple of cheap kind of one-off options, I feel, in the bottom half. Like, Devin Travis at 3-1 or like a Randall Grichuk 2-8 or Lemus Diaz 3-2. Like, there's some cheap punt options. I think those are the guys I have the most interest in if I need them.
It would mostly be Devin Travis. For me, we're talking about a guy with like a 291 ISO, 389 WOBA dating back to last season against lefties. Like, Grichuk's fine, 163 ISO over that span. Diaz has never been a guy that's hit lefties very well. Like, I mean, dating back to 2016, 213 WOBA, 0.034 ISO, like 70% contact rate. Not a guy I'm terribly in love with here. It's the Devin Travis for cheap. Kevin Pillar is interesting as well. And then like the first base options if you wanted to roll them out.
Yeah, and like I know Teoscar Hernandez is a little bit banged up. If he's in the lineup, 4K, not a bad price on him.
No, not at all.
Baltimore and New York, Jason Vargas take on Alex Cobb. You'd expect the run totals to probably be like 14 or 15 here, but they're not because both these offenses have just been horrendous.
This is one of those scenarios where like I feel like we should be more interested in both of these offenses, and like I'm just not. Like Jason Vargas pitched better over his last couple of games. Somewhat surprising. Got through the Braves outing pretty cleanly. That was tilting as hell, but like, I don't know. Maybe he's in play in tournaments. Maybe against this Orioles offense that's just absolutely just terrible. It's interesting, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like this game is just so. It's going to be one way or another here. Like I feel like there's just so much disappointment written all over this game. Like obviously, you're looking at like a Manny Machado over 300 ISO against lefties this year. Outside of that, though, like a lot of these guys are cheap. Like you can use them. They're just all GPP guys. Like there's nothing really too exciting. Like you're trying to find the guys who hit sinkers well, and they all do, but they just haven't been great this year.
No, they really haven't. And this is a team, I mean, their strikeout rate against lefties like 23% overall. You mentioned you're looking for guys that hit sinkers pretty well. Obviously, Machado is really tough to overlook. He's a guy with like a 92% contact rate against the pitch. Danny Valencia is a pretty interesting like one-off. Hasn't shown a ton of power against that pitch, but decent contact numbers. I don't hate him, and like Joey Rickard up at the top of that order is an interesting like value option too. Like he is 2,900 on DraftKings. That's pretty cheap. Valencia 3,100. Austin Wins if he gets in the lineup. He's projected up there. He's a cheap catching option that you could roll out.
Yeah, like I mean, these guys are all I think viable like one-offs here, and like you said, because if you're paying up at pitching, which you probably will be tonight, like you can use some of these guys. Like Trey Mancini's interesting at 3-3 there if he gets in the lineup.
Yeah, he is, and even someone like Scope, a guy that hits changeups and sinkers pretty well.
Yeah. Other side of this one, you got Alex Cobb. I would think I'm a little bit higher on the Mets for sure, just given some of these lefties and that their prices. Like Brandon Nemo's a guy that I just consistently want to plug into my lineups. Like he's the guy I'm always looking for from this Mets team right now.
I feel like every single game, he's just coming out and like either walking or hitting home runs. It feels like that's what's happening. Like this dude has been just ridiculous recently. His price is finally up to where it should be. He's a very fine option against righties. 257 ISO, 419 WOBA dating back to last season. Asdrubal Cabrera and Conforto are definitely solid options here as well.
Yeah, it's those three, and that's kind of about it.
Yeah, I guess the catching options, whoever might get in the lineup, because I think Mesoraco is day to day. So whatever catching option got in the lineup, you could consider in this spot. And I'm looking like Conforto, excellent numbers against like those 91 mile an hour four seam fastballs. Todd Frazier is potentially back tonight, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
3,900. It's an interesting spot for him too.
Yep. Next one here, we got Boston, Detroit. Artie Lewicki taking on Stephen Wright. Definitely an interesting game here, especially with Wright pitching. It's always interesting. He's 5,300. I kind of don't hate him.
He was a guy I was actually looking at before I noticed the price on one of the pitchers that we're going to get to here shortly. Stephen Wright, a very, very volatile guy. He's a knuckleballer, so like that's what you're going to get with knuckleballers is they're going to be extremely volatile. This Tigers offense is one that we don't hate targeting with righties, even though there's not a ton of strikeouts available. You're looking at like 21, 22%. It's not a terrible spot for him. The biggest concern that I have is that like 5 innings, maybe maximum. 5 if he's efficient. I mean, he's only 68 pitches, I think is the most he's thrown this season. Like he's been used a couple times, like 3-4 innings, but I don't see him going really, really deep into this game. But it may not be that big of an issue if you look at the fact that none of these guys hit knuckles very well at all.
No, and I don't know how much like I think some stock is to put on that, but knuckleballers is just kind of different because they can go deeper into games and pitch more often just because they're not putting a ton of stress on their arm. But like he's just a GPP guy, 5,300. He's an SP2 guy if you want to toss him to stacks and bats. Like pretty good chance he can pick up a win here and just kind of hope for the best. But knuckleballers on DK scoring also is kind of sucks because they do tend to give up a decent amount of base runners as well.
Yeah, that is definitely concerning. And then walks also, like that kind of hurts a little bit. So he's still a tournament arm, but like he only needs if he can get you 15 fantasy points before getting a win, like you're pretty happy with that.
Yeah, for sure. 5,300. Other side of this one, I don't mind the Red Sox offense as usual. They're just a little pricey. I think I'd be tempted to kind of lean on guys like Bogarts and Moreland, who are a little bit more priced down in that low mid to 4K range because I don't know, 5K for Benintendi's been red hot. If you have the cash, I'm fine with it, or Martinez, but I just don't think I will.
My biggest concern is I don't know who the hell's going to be in this lineup. Like Betts is out. JD Martinez is listed as day-to-day. Like they're pretty banged up right now. Pedroia is back on the DL. Like they're pretty banged up, but like this is a good spot for the lefties. Luecki, a guy, 368 WOBA allowed to left-handers dating back to last season, 44% fly ball rate, 39% hard contact. If you're factoring in last season, if you're just looking at this season, only a 294 WOBA allowed, but like 50% hard contact, 38% fly balls. It is a good spot for the lefties that you mentioned. It really tough to overlook Benintendi. If you can afford him, go for it. Brock Holt's a guy that I really, really, really like in the spot, strictly because he's really cheap, and he's almost always a guy that just gives you good return on his salary. Like against Luecki's fastball, 94% contact rate, 306 ISO. He's gonna bat towards the bottom of that order, but like, and unfortunately with Jackie Bradley in front of him, it's gonna be hard for him to get RBIs. But he's just a good contact hitter that just hardly ever gives you nothing.
Yeah, I like Colin, especially shortstop eligible as well at 3,300. And I like the Devers, and if like Blake Sweetheart gets in the lineup, and obviously JBJ, like all these guys are super cheap, below 3,400 on DraftKings. All lefties. I don't hate like a wraparound stack actually.
No, it's definitely a good way to go. And like I rag on JBJ, like still a decent option at that price. Like against Luecki's fastball, 219 ISO, 345 WOBA, like 41% or 42% hard contact, just not making a lot of contact with him, only 77%.
Right. And I think JBJ's been hitting the ball a little bit better. Things are starting to kind of drop for him a little bit of late.
I hope so. Dude needs to get going.
Yeah, for sure. Next one here, you got Milwaukee and Cleveland. You got Corey Kluber taking on Junior Guerra. Indians' offense has obviously been red hot. Whereas a guy, I feel like always his numbers should not be what they look like.
No, he's a guy like you're right. He tends to outpitch his peripherals, and it's one of those guys where you're like you want to scream like regression, and it doesn't generally happen that often. He does have some blow up starts, so you do kind of want to look at that. I think you can look at guys on both sides of the plate, like dating back to last season, pretty similar, like 311, 319 WOBA to righties and lefties. Pretty similar ISOs allowed. Is giving up a lot of fly balls to lefties, 46%, 32% hard contact, about 40% fly balls to righties. It's a good hitting environment, so I mean, anybody from this game is in play. Like I really like Yonder Alonso, who's been on fire of late. And is pretty darn cheap, 4,200 on DraftKings. It's a really good price for him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's the Alonsos, it's the Melky Cabreras that I'm looking at here, the kind of cheaper lefties towards the middle, bottom half of that lineup. If like a Greg Allen gets in the lineup, I don't hate him at his cheap price either.
No, he's a decent option, and I mean, if you wanted to sprinkle in like the Brantleys and the Lindors and the Ramirez, that's fine. I'm still probably looking at some of the cheaper options from this game or from the Cleveland side, though.
Yeah, no one's going to stop you from using Ramirez's 355 ISO against righties this year.
Dude is just ridiculous.
Yeah, Lindor, Brantley, Ramirez. It's been a murderer's row so far. If you want to use them, if you're going cheap at pitching, feel free. They are a decent stack.
Yeah, for sure.
Other side here, Kluber. For me, he's just a GPP guy. I'm going Scherzer in cash games. If you want to spin off, there's not that huge of a price discount for me to kind of go down, I feel.
No, like I can easily afford Kluber on this slate, so that's gonna be what I'm gonna do. Like Kluber 28% strikeout rate this season, 32.2% strikeout rate dating back to last season. This Brewers offense only 22% strikeout rates against righties dating back to last season. He's a fine option if you want to use him. It's one of those things where I just would rather go with Scherzer.
Yeah, I'm with you. Definitely not picking on Kluber here.
I don't know. Didn't he get shelled by this team just like 2 starts ago?
I think so. I think a lot of it was late in the game.
I guess it was like several starts ago.
Yeah, it feels like just. Yeah, I mean, he gave up 2 homers, 3 earned runs. It's just the strikeouts really weren't there.
Yeah, he only had 6. And that's the thing that you're going to get with Kluber on some nights. Like the double-digit strikeouts may not be there. Like the Klubot may malfunction.
Yeah, and I don't want to pay 12 plus K for that. I want my Klubot working 100%.
Yeah, me too.
Colorado, Cincinnati, Anthony Desclafani versus Kyle Freeland. Rather low run total for such a good park here. I'm a little bit weirded out by it.
Well, I mean, Freeland's a actually really solid arm. Like if you get him outside of Coors most nights, he's pretty good. And the same thing goes with like Desclafani. Like Disco Stew is historically a pretty solid pitcher. That being said, he is coming off of injury and was really bad in his rehab starts.
Yeah, like I kind of like some Rockies bats here, and I think they're going to go overlooked.
Man, it's crazy. He hasn't pitched since September 28th of 2016.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
No, it really doesn't. Like I feel like he pitched last year.
So do I. Like that's crazy. Like I swear he pitched last year.
So you go back. I mean, it was the lefties in those healthy years that kind of tagged him the most. And you do have a couple cheap lefties, but I don't know. Like I still kind of don't mind like LeMahieu and Arenado here in this spot as well, and even a Story.
No, those would be the guys that would look at. I mean, this is obviously a pretty good park boost. I wonder if someone like. No, I was looking to see like if there maybe like a Ryan McMahon made the lineup or something like that. If he got in, like I wouldn't mind using him as like a value option.
No, I definitely wouldn't either. And these guys are just tournament guys. I feel like there's better safer cash game options, but I think this is an interesting kind of low owned spot to get some bats in this game.
Yeah, I agree there.
Cincinnati side of things, it's kind of Eugenio Suarez and move on for me with this red side.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm going as well. Although, like Scooter Gennett against lefties this season has just been ridiculous. Like 270 ISO, 423 WOBA. He's interesting. Like Adam Duvall, a pretty solid option towards the bottom of that lineup that I don't necessarily hate. Those would be the guys I would look at most, and then maybe. Is Casali projected in the lineup at catcher?
Yeah, he is, and he's like 2.6. Like I was about, he's a punt option if you need it.
Yeah, he's a pretty solid punt option at 2.6.
Moving on, Philly and Chicago. Back in Wrigley, you got the wind blowing in a little bit here. Kyle Hendricks for Zach Eflin. It definitely won't stop me from using some Cubs bats here.
I hate wind at Wrigley games because it feels like it's always just a lie. Like the wind is a lie. I wrote up the Cubs stack in the stacking article today. I only wrote up the lefties though. Like I those are the only guys I really care about in this spot is the lefties, and Zach Eflin, a guy really struggling against lefties this season. 373 WOBA allowed, 300 ISO allowed, 54% fly ball rate, 46% hard contact rate. It's a really good spot for all the lefties in this lineup, and they could, in theory, load up lefties. Like they could give a couple of the righties a day off and get a bunch of lefties in there.
Yeah, like you're Gonna get like Zobrist, Hayward, Rizzo, Schwarber, maybe like an Ian Happ in there. Um, Hayward let us down, Friday with an 0 for 5 day. That was very fun. I don't mind going back to the well on Hayward. He was hitting the ball really well before that. Still making really hard contact this year, 37% against righties. So I know it was a bummer, but I like Hayward. I like Schwarber here as well. I think Schwarber's going to be my home run call a little bit later on.
Hayward's one of my favorite options here. I mean, even factoring in that 0 for 5 start, still a 413 OBP and 398 at Woba over the last 2 weeks. Only it's like he has like a 162 ISO against F1's forcing fastball, which is the pitch is getting just blasted. But still a 355 Woba, 91% contact rate dating back to 2016 on the pitch. Obviously, you mentioned Schwarber, excellent option here. Hits curveballs really well too, so that's a bonus. I really do like Zobrist here. 326 Woba against sliders, 226 ISO against that four seamer. Good spot for him, and then don't overlook Anthony Rizzo.
No, definitely not. And not a really a pricey stack when you factor in it's just the lefties.
No, it's really not. Like even like Schwarber is only 4,300, so it's still a decent spot. Like I'm kind of hoping Jorge Alfaro is not in the lineup for Philly. That way Schwarber could have some stolen base upside.
Yeah, because that dude's got a cannon.
I'm just shocked that Kyle Schwarber's stealing bases this season.
Look at that, man. He is thin.
Skinny Kyle Schwarber.
He reminds me of you Family Guy at all?
Yeah.
When, like an older episode when Peter gets the fat sucked out of him and becomes skinny, like that's Kyle Schwarber this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Other side of this one, I really like Kyle Hendricks tonight. One of my favorite like mid-range plays, 8,300. Big, huge home favorites. Gets a Phillies team that's really been struggling. I think Hendricks has some strikeout upside, obviously, in this spot. Projected lineup, 24.3% strikeout rate against right-handers this year. And we've seen some strikeouts from Hendricks at times.
Yeah, there's some potential here, and it's Hendricks at home, so he's going to be fine because for some reason Hendricks just really pitches so much better at home, so you don't have to worry about that. You mentioned the strikeout upside here for him. Like he's a guy generally we don't target for upside or for strikeouts anyways. I mean, 21% dating back to last season. But you reference that strikeout rate to righties. I mean, dating back to last season, this projected lineup 26%. There's a lot of strikeouts available for him in this lineup. It's one of those things where I'm trying to get Hendricks and Scherzer in my lineups tonight in cash games.
Yeah, and he's got that excellent changeup that he's throwing about 28% of the time, 39% whiff rate, and you are getting guys in this lineup that just below 60% contact rate against that changeup. So I'm much higher on Hendricks than usual, and he's also a guy that I expect to kind of work a little bit deeper into tonight's game, go 7 innings here.
Yeah, you only have like Odubel Herrera, the only guy with a 70% contact rate against changeups. Everyone else like below 70%, several below 60, and just about everyone but Odubel has a whiff rate above 30%. Even it's such a good spot for him.
Yeah, it really is. I don't have interest in anyone here.
No, I don't really either. Normally, I mean, Odubel would normally be a guy that I would look at, like maybe a Carlos Santana, but I don't know if he's recovered from playing the national anthem at the game the other night. he looked really rough out there.
Oh man. Oakland, Texas, this next one, Matt Moore, Sean Manaea. I'm expecting some offense in this one. I know you are as well. Let's talk Oakland bats here first.
Yeah, I love the Oakland bats here. We know Matt Moore is just a total gas can. Like 7.85 ERA, 2.00 WHIP. This season has allowed at least 4 earned runs in 5 of his 10 starts, including like a 10-run blow up against the Indians. The weather is going to be a nice boost. It's supposed to be super hot. And I think it's supposed to be like humid. So like less dense air is good for balls flying. It's just such an amazing spot for actually, I think hitters on both sides of this game are in a really good spot, but I love Chris Davis and Mark Canha as like 2 really, really good outfield options. Even someone like Chad Pinder, who may get in the lineup, is in a really, really good spot.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I like him a lot. I think Matt Olson's obviously in play too here. Dude's been red hot. Matt Moore's obviously struggled against lefties as well. Olson hit some curveballs for some power, 320 ISO against that curveball, 45% contact rate, and obviously that's been a pitch that has gone for some power this year for more, 227 ISO. So I mean, both sides here. Like, well, I know you're not going to get a lot of lefties, but Olson's in play as well, and then obviously guys like Chapman and some cheaper guys. If you need a punt like Luke Roy, I'm okay with it too.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Like, okay, against Moore's fastball, Olson owns a 625 ISO. Also happens to lead the majors over the last 2 weeks with like a 53% hard contact rating. Yeah.
Yeah,
He might be one of my home run calls later.
yeah. This is a game that you want to target. And like you said, even on the other side, Sean Manaea, broken. Like there's something up with him.
Yeah. If there ever were a game for him to get right, it would probably be against the Rangers, who are generally just a terrible, terrible offense. But I don't know. I kind of like some of these Rangers bats in this spot.
Yeah, I do too. Like I'm definitely okay with like an Adrian Beltre who's back, but I really like Profar, 3,500 shortstop option. He's been the guy who's hitting lefties well this year. Robinson Chirinos as well. He's 3K. Hard contact is still up against lefties, or 43%. Yeah, there's some cheap options here.
There's definitely some cheap options. Like the guys you mentioned are definitely interesting. I don't hate like Kiner Falefa in this spot, and even like I know it's lefty on lefty, but Ronald Guzman is interesting down towards the bottom of that lineup too.
Yeah, don't look. And Texas, I think, will go overlooked here. Like definitely on tonight's slate.
Yeah, for sure. No one ever wants to, use Texas bats like
No. Next one here, you got Seattle and Houston. James Paxton taking on Dallas Keuchel. We're definitely a pro Paxton podcast. I'm not tremendously high on him here.
He's someone that I'm at least interested in if you're fading the top tier arms. I mean, the strikeout potential is there for him. Like we know this Houston offense does strike out from time to time. They're at home where they've actually been a little bit worse this season. If you want to pay that price for him, like he's really cheap compared to the other top tier arms. And we're talking about a guy with like a 30% strikeout rate dating back to last season. And we've already seen him shut down this Houston offense once this year. He's a fine option if you want to roll him out.
Yeah, like I'm okay. Like GPPs, like you said, there is a difference between him. There's a couple guys in that 9K range that I think I'm just kind of more settled on, I guess.
Yeah, I can agree there.
And I'm not necessarily going to really pick on Paxton. He's not a guy who really allows power to right-handers.
No, like if I was looking at anyone, it would probably be like, I guess like an Alex Bregman or something who's like on like a 10-game hit streak or some BS like that, and be about it.
Yeah, like Springer's price comes down. He's 4.6, but 14-game slate here, not tremendously high. I'm picking up Paxton.
No, like 4.8, I can get Giancarlo Stanton in a better spot.
Yeah. Other side of things here, not really looking to pick on Keuchel here, but not really looking to use him either.
I don't hate picking on him. Like this is a pretty good spot for some of these bats. I would maybe be looking at some one-offs like the Ryan Healy's and then Mike Zuninos and like the Nelson Cruz. Like Cruz versus a lefty, it is always tough to overlook him. But like I would be looking at the power guys that hit sinkers really well, and that is pretty much Cruz, Zunino, and Healy.
Yeah, I did. Healy would be a guy because he's 3.8 at first base. I don't mind him. Cruz, for some reason, has never been over 4.5 on DK this year.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting to see him that cheap, especially like he's been hitting really well recently outside of his last game against Tampa.
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely will never say no to Cruz against a lefty.
Yeah, for sure.
Next one here, Chicago, Minnesota. They're not on the slate, right?
I don't think so. No.
No, they're that doubleheader game that doesn't have a second time. Carlos Martinez, Jose Urena, Cardinals, Marlins. Martinez coming off the DL. The last strain, you and I talked about him a little bit before about he's kind of an easy fade, even against the Marlins on this slate, to really just kind of not take the risk.
Yeah, for me, it's a fade. If you wanted to roll him out in tournaments, feel free because it's the Marlins and they're terrible. But I refuse to roster a pitcher coming off a last strain. Like last strains will literally drain pitchers of like everything they have. Like they're not easy to come back from, and he was not on the DL for that long. So like I have concerns about him coming off the DL off of a last strain.
Yeah, I do too. I don't mind some Cardinals bats here. You look, I mean, Urian is obviously a guy who's allowed a lot of hard contact at both sides of the plate, but a lot of it coming on the ground as well. I'm okay with like the Carpenters here. I will say Tommy Phan's always interesting too.
Yeah, I'm always going to look at like a Matt Carpenter now that he stopped sucking so bad. It has not been good like recently, but did get off the schneid and was on a pretty good hot streak. So he's someone that I definitely don't hate using. Tommy Pham, as you mentioned, and Fowler not projected in the lineup, but would be someone that I would consider rolling out just because he's cheap.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
Did you have interest in any Miami bats?
Justin Bour one off because
we could just replay that every time. Yeah, still super cheap. I mean, Martinez has, in the longer run, struggled a little bit with lefties at times.
Yeah, he has, and Justin Bour is a pretty powerful lefty.
Yeah, so I don't hate that. Kansas City, LA, Brad Keller taking on Andrew Heaney. Any interest in Heaney here?
In tournament, sure. It's a pretty solid price. We know the Royals are not a team that generally strikes out a ton against lefties. Less than like 17% dating back to last season, and that does kind of hurt the upside for Heaney. But he's been a pretty solid arm this season, and like I don't think he's out of consideration in tournaments here.
Yeah, I like him in tournaments. He's 8,600 on DraftKings. I think he's going to be a guy who gets overlooked because I think people will kind of gravitate towards the Newcombs and Hendricks in that range as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So don't really have a ton of interest outside of maybe like a Salvador Perez or Jorge Soler, maybe a Whit Merrifield one-off, but I think you're reaching a little deep in GPPs for those guys.
Yeah, they would be the guys that I would mostly look at. Like Perez is always in play if you're paying up for catcher. He's fine. Guys like Hunter Dozier, pretty cheap. I mean, he's $3K on DraftKings. I don't hate that price. Like Ramon Torres, a cheap option here. Like I would be looking at some of the cheap bats. Abraham Almonte would probably get in the lineup. He'd be another cheaper option you could look at if you need the value.
Yep. Angels side of things against Keller. We talked about Keller recently last week about a guy who's probably not going to go terribly deep into this game, but a guy that I'm not tremendously high on picking on either.
No, I'm not terribly in love with picking on him here. Not a guy that gives up much of anything to either side of the plate, really. Yeah, like I don't really have a lot of interest in picking on him. Ground ball guy. I mean, Andrelton Simmons, a guy that I'd feel pretty comfortable with as like a cash game option. Has struck out like once since like the 27th of March or some BS like that. Like, so he's someone that you can look at. Obviously, Mike Trout is Mike Trout, but I'm not paying $6K for him tonight.
Yeah, I'm not either. Cozart's probably the only other name, just 380 WOBA, but 213 ISO against that fastball range. That's probably about it. But he's a guy who's we still have to keep an eye on. I kind of nicked up and been in and out of lineups over the last few weeks.
Yeah, not someone I'm really looking at here, but I guess maybe like Martin Maldonado, someone you could look at. Luis Valbuena against that fastball range, like a 515 xWOBA, dating back to 2016. None of these guys outside of like Simmons and Pujols and Kinsler have great contact rates against it, though.
No. Atlanta, San Diego next year. You got Sean Newcomb versus Jordan Lyles. Newcomb's, obviously calmed down a little bit after that hot stretch he had. I know the Padres have gotten a couple right-handers back into the lineup, and it is going to be a little bit more right-handed heavy, but I don't mind Newcomb here in GPPs.
Yeah, he's fine in tournaments. Like this is still a good strikeout spot for him. I mean, this Padres team is young. Like there's strikeouts available for him, but at the same time, like I do have some concerns because I don't generally like taking lefties against the Padres, just because you get the Villanuevas, the Renfros, and some of these bats that really, really, really hard contact against lefties.
Yeah, and Villanueva left with a ankle injury the other day. If he's out of the lineup, that's obviously a huge bump.
Yeah, he'd be someone to keep an eye on if he's not able to give it a go. That's pretty much like a guaranteed home run you're taking out of the lineup.
Yeah, and if he's in the lineup, obviously he's a guy I will always have a ton of interest in.
Yeah, I mean, what 620 or 549 WOBA, 588 ISO against righties, 73 plate appearances. Those numbers are not going down. Like he's in that like high 500, 600 like range like the entire season. Like his regression has not come against lefties.
No, over 50% fly ball rate and hard contact rate against lefties this year. Like it's staying there.
Average air distance like 346 feet.
It's stupid. You mentioned like the Renfros. I think Fremont Reyes is an interesting option too. Like he's shown some power. All viable GPP options. It's kind of a GPP game, I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
Atlanta side, I don't mind some bats here. Jordan Lyles hasn't been that bad this year. But dating back to like last year, he's given up some power numbers to both sides. I mainly have interest in the lefties here as usual.
Yeah, it's always the lefties. You're looking at, I mean, NCRT in that leadoff spot. This offense has kind of started to suck because he's leading off again, and that kind of hurts them. But you're looking at him, Albies, Freeman, Markakis, Tucker, an interesting option towards the bottom of that lineup because, as you mentioned, Lyles has struggled. 359 WOBA, 193 ISO allowed to lefties dating back to last season. And yeah, those would be the guys that I would look at the most.
Yeah, like I really like Camargo, a guy who's been hitting the ball really, really well, hitting the ball really hard as well, over 40% contact rate against righties this year, and has that third base shortstop eligibility, and that price just seemingly is not coming up.
No, it kind of never does.
So yeah, it's the cheap guys here. I don't know how much Albies or Freeman I'll have just because of their price tags.
Yeah, for sure. I again, it's one of those scenarios where I can take a better option in a better matchup, better park for cheaper.
Yeah. Next game here, you got the Diamondbacks and Giants, another low-scoring projected game. Bumgarner coming off the DL. He's 10-1 against an Arizona team that's been pretty much dreadful against left-handers this year. He might be the guy that I'm okay with using right off the bat, but I still think I'm going to probably take a wait-and-see approach.
I probably would as well. He went 3 2/3 in his rehab appearance. I don't know how deep he'd go into this game. That's my biggest concern.
Right, and like for a guy who's still over 10K, like I know it's 10-1, you still want a guy who kind of feels safe to go 6+ innings, and I don't feel that with Bumgarner. We've seen at times where, yes, generally Bumgarner's a guy with solid control, but guys who make that first start back, they don't quite seem to have it.
No, and that's definitely concerning. You mentioned this Diamondbacks team has struggled against lefties, 23, 24% strikeout rate this season. If you wanted to roll them out in tournaments, it's fine. Again, just know that you're taking a pretty big risk with a guy he only had one rehab start. So it's not like he had like a bunch of rehab starts to get stretched out. So he did go through he did go through most of spring training, I think, before the finger injury. So at least he got stretched out that part. And it's not like his first pitching in the majors this season.
Right. He might be just kind of a late slate guy, if anything.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any interest picking on him either here.
Goldie BVP, that'd be about it.
Yeah. And obviously Goldie's still been matching lefties this year and he's 4-4.
Yeah.
So, other side of this one, Corbin. I definitely have some interest in Corbin here tonight in tournaments. 9-9. A guy we've talked about that slider, and the Giants suck against sliders, and we've seen the strikeout upside from Corbin. I don't think he's a cash game guy by any means, but I like him in GPPs.
Yeah, he's a GPP guy, and he's a late slate guy for me. I think in cash here you can consider him on the late slate. But yeah, just a GPP arm, like 33% strikeout rate this season, like 24.4% dating back to last season. This Giants team really does struggle against sliders. I do like him in the spot. If I could afford to use him in my Scherzer lineups, I would try. I just don't know if I can afford to use him. And like the biggest concern if I'm paying up at that price is I don't know if he's going to get the win in the spot.
Right, that's the thing too. It's because Hendricks at 8-3 just makes it so much harder to plug in these guys over him.
Yeah, that's kind of the same way I feel.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of that, like I do think like a McCutchen and Longoria are interesting one-offs.
Yeah, they're fine. Gorkys Hernandez, a guy that continues to rake this season, is fine. Big Mac Williamson, another guy that I don't hate. And tournaments, their prices are not terribly expensive. So like late slate, if you wanted to stack against Corbin, I'd be looking at the Gorkys, Posey, McCutchen, and like Mac Williams stack.
Yeah, I don't mind it. And all cheap guys. And we've seen Corbin, obviously become a little bit more volatile of late as well.
Yeah, and a lot has to do with like he's kind of changed around his pitch mix a little bit because his velocity's still down, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It hasn't come back up, which is a little bit concerning. But I mean, that red start, it was really the hanging sliders that got to him because Schebler and Duvall just absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, and he still had like 10 strikeouts.
Right. The strikeouts have been there of late for him still.
That's crazy. Like 6 earned runs, 10 strikeouts, and still could have put up like 20 DraftKings points if the Diamondbacks could have given them more run support.
Yeah, it was like a Nuke LaRouche type game there for Corbin.
Yeah.
Home run calls. Are we going with our Olsen Schwarber from earlier?
Yeah. And then I think I'm going to go with Gleyber Torres.
Well, I like that call. I'm gonna stick with Brandon Nimmo here. He's been red hot.
I dig it.
So that's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow. Check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for cheat sheets and content. And good luck.
Good luck tonight.